Imagine this. You're standing in a cafe, minding your own business, and suddenly the table next to you explodes with laughter stories. Voices bouncing off the walls like a live podcast you never subscribed to. Heads turn, cups rattle, and your first thought is, why are Americans so loud in public? Not angry loud, not rude loud, just confidently, unapologetically loud. If you've ever noticed this and wondered whether it's habit, culture, or something deeper, stay with me, because what sounds like noise is actually telling a powerful story about identity, freedom, and how people learn to exist in the world. Here's the real problem most people struggle with when they experience this. They assume loudness equals bad manners. They assume it means attention-seeking or lack of respect. And that assumption creates instant judgment. You feel irritated. You feel uncomfortable. You might even feel invisible. But what if that volume isn't about ignoring others at all? What if it's about being taught, from childhood, that your voice deserves space? Think about that for a second. How many people around the world grow up being told, directly or indirectly, to lower their voice, not take up space, not speak unless spoken to? Now flip that idea completely. In the United States, speaking up is not just allowed, it's rewarded. From classrooms to boardrooms, from playgrounds to podcasts, Americans are taught early that confidence sounds loud, participation sounds loud, leadership sounds loud. Silence, on the other hand, can be misunderstood as weakness, disinterest, or even incompetence. So when Americans talk loudly in public, they're often not trying to dominate the room. They're simply operating on a social frequency they were trained on. Now compare that with many other countries. Take Japan, for example. In public places, quiet is respect. Loud voices are seen as disruptive, even selfish. People speak softly on trains. Phone calls in public are frowned upon. The unspoken rule is simple. Your presence should not disturb others. Or look at Germany, where public behavior tends to be more controlled and voices more measured. Loud talking can feel out of place, even childish. In many South Asian cultures, volume changes with context. Loud at home, soft outside, especially around elders or strangers. So when someone from these cultures encounters American public spaces, the contrast can feel shocking. But here's the twist most people miss. Americans don't experience loudness the same way you do. For many of them, it doesn't register as loud at all. It registers as normal, comfortable, friendly, engaged. In fact, speaking softly in a lively public space in the US can make you feel ignored. Have you ever tried ordering food in a busy American restaurant while speaking gently? You repeat yourself. The server leans in. You feel awkward. That's because the environment itself is loud music. Machines, conversations layered on top of each other. People adapt by raising their voices. Over time, that adaptation becomes habit. Let me give you a real-life picture. Imagine a group of American friends sitting at an airport gate. They're talking about their weekend plans, laughing loudly. One person telling a dramatic story with big gestures. Nearby, a traveler from another country sits quietly, headphones on, visibly annoyed. To the traveler, this feels inconsiderate. To the Americans, it feels like connection. They're not performing, they're bonding. And here's the key point in American culture. Connection is often outward, expressive, and audible. Ask yourself this when you're excited. Do you lower your voice or raise it? Most Americans raise it. Excitement equals volume. Passion equals volume. Even disagreement equals volume. Not because they're angry, but because intensity is expressed through sound. This is why American debates, talk shows, and even family dinners can sound dramatic. Loudness becomes a language of emotion. There's also another layer people rarely talk about. Space. The United States is physically large. Homes are bigger. Streets are wider. Personal space norms are different. When you grow up in wide spaces, sound travels differently in your mind. You don't constantly adjust for closeness the way people do in more densely populated countries. So when Americans enter smaller cafes, trains, or international spaces, they don't always recalibrate immediately. Their volume stays the same even when the room doesn't. Now here's a question for you. Have you ever noticed how Americans often say, speak up, but rarely say, speak softly? That's not an accident. The culture values clarity over subtlety. Being heard matters. Being understood matters. And being memorable matters. A loud voice helps with all three. That's why public speaking, presentations, and even casual storytelling in the U.S. lean toward projection rather than restraint. But let's be honest for a moment. Sometimes it is too much. Even Americans get annoyed by other Americans being loud. There's a difference between expressive and oblivious, and this is where the struggle really shows up. The line between confidence and disturbance is not always clear. Some people cross it without realizing. Others cross it because they've never been taught to notice it. Cultural blind spots work both ways. Here's another real-life scenario. An American tourist walks into a quiet European cafe early in the morning. They greet the barista loudly, chat about their day, laugh with their friend. Locals glance over. The energy shifts. The American feels confused. Why is everyone so stiff? The locals feel irritated. Why is this person disrupting the calm? Both sides feel uncomfortable, and neither is wrong. They're just operating with different social roles. So what's the lesson here? The lesson is not, Americans should be quieter or everyone else should relax. The lesson is awareness. Volume is cultural. Loudness is learned. Silence is learned too. And once you understand that, something powerful happens. You stop taking it personally. You stop assuming bad intentions. You start reading behavior as information instead of offense. Let me ask you something important. When someone talks loudly near you, what do you feel first? Anger, embarrassment, curiosity, or judgment? And where do you think that feeling comes from? Your culture, your upbringing, your personal boundaries? Drop that thought in the comments, because this is where the conversation gets real. Now here's how you can actually use this lesson in your own life. If you're living in or visiting the US, don't mistake loudness for aggression. If someone sounds intense, it might just mean they're engaged. Match energy before judging intent. On the other hand, if you're American traveling abroad, watch the room. Notice how others are speaking. Volume is one of the fastest ways to signal respect in a new culture. And here's a subtle but powerful takeaway. People who are taught that their voice matters grow up believing they matter. People who are taught to stay quiet often grow up doubting that. Neither is inherently right or wrong, but the difference shapes how societies function. American loudness is deeply connected to ideas of freedom, individuality, and self-expression. It's not just noise, it's philosophy spoken out loud. So next time you hear Americans talking loudly in public, pause before you judge. Ask yourself, is this rudeness or is this confidence? Is this ignorance or is this cultural wiring? And if you've ever been told to lower your voice your whole life, ask yourself another question. What would it feel like to believe your voice deserves space? That's the real conversation here. Not volume, not manners, but whose voices are allowed to be heard and how loudly.